Hi and welcome. My name's Jennifer Britton. Thank you for joining us for this short ICF video on conversations in the virtual space, getting started. If we haven't met before, I'm the author of several books, including Effective Virtual Conversations, Plan, Do, Track, which is a workbook planner for remote and virtual professionals, and also From One to Many, Best Practices for Team and Group Coaching. I've been really privileged in that the better part of my entire career since the early 1990s has happened in the virtual space. As a former leader with the United Nations and the global humanitarian aid sector, I would support professionals from all over the world to translate their skills into new cultural contexts. My teams were typically across one country or a region of the world. And as I found myself in the late 1990s, early 2000s, we really started looking at how we could use technology to leverage our conversations and, more importantly, leverage our results. At the core of this was trust, safety, and connection. And I know for all of you that are coaches or are coaching clients, this probably is a major topic for your conversations right now. It is a key topic for those of us working in the remote and virtual space, because if we don't have trust, safety, and connection, our conversations are always going to remain on the surface. This is one of several videos created for the ICF, as many coaches are now finding themselves needing to transition from the in-person realm to the virtual space. So let's talk a little bit about how do we build trust, safety, and connection, and why is it important? Increasingly, there's been a lot of research catching up to our practices. Many of us, as coaches, as facilitators, have been taking time to build agreements, to create shared agreements with those that we're working with. In fact, co-creating agreements is part of our ICF coaching competencies. As I wrote in Effective Virtual Conversations, it is when we have the trust, connection, and safety present that we are able to move into the most important conversations for the moment. And think of the moment right now. My guess is really important, world-changing conversations need to happen in the lives of your clients. I hope that you're going to find this video very practical and tactical in helping you think through how can you build more connection, how can you build more trust and safety to really help people bring the issues that are of greatest import to your conversations. And again, this will take place whether you're working with one person or many. So building connection, what can we do? Well, here in the virtual space, we have a lot of different tools available. And one of the other videos I did for the ICF gets into that. So do check out the top 10, where I talk a little bit more about breakouts and annotation. When we're working with groups or even one person, we really want to make sure that people are connected in with the topics of relevance. So how are people taking the coaching conversation and connecting it to their life? And if you're coaching more than one person, how are they connecting not only with you, but with each other? And that's where some of these tools come into play. Breakouts. We can put people in smaller rooms and have deeper conversations. Are we using video streaming or not? This is an interesting one. For some people, they love being seen on a screen. For others, they might feel a little plastique, and that way you might consider using phone only. As we move into the virtual and remote space, it's harder sometimes to see, well, definitely to see people's context. So you might actually incorporate some pre-calls, or maybe you have people pair up with each other and you create buddies, peer partners, account buddies for ongoing conversation touch points. Ultimately, if you're working with more than one person, provide an opportunity for people to introduce themselves early on. Ask the group, what connections do you see? Ask the teams you're working with, what is the connection you notice? And for those that are working one-on-one, ask people to really see how this topic is connecting on multiple layers of their life. Virtually, we can be doing a lot of different things. And again, I'll invite you to go to the top 10 recording where I looked at some visuals, we looked at roadmaps. You might actually have some anchors, maybe using some metaphors, or helping people see that common ground. Safety is just as important as connection. And in Effective Virtual Conversations, I call it the triad of virtual conversations. So if we're missing one, it just doesn't sound right. Safety is key, and that we can create by clarity in terms of the purpose of the call, what the call is for, and the end results. One of the challenges when everything is going online is how do people differentiate between a coaching call and a meeting? How do we signal that they are the one in the driver's seat in the coaching conversation? And that takes us back, as usual, to co-creating together those individual coaching agreements or our team or group ways of working. How are we going to operate together? What are the roles? Who's responsible for doing what? You might even draw that out using a whiteboard or using annotation. So as we're talking, I'm just going to go and grab my annotation tool. And again, I can draw a roadmap. I might get the client to actually differentiate, what are they focusing on? Or in our conversations, where have they been? Where did they start? What was first session all about? What was our second conversation about? Our third conversation, etc., etc. Creating a visual anchor can help people see the shifts that they're making. And in the virtual space, we may not have the same cues as we've had in the in-person realm. So creating safety is also about visibility. It's connecting people with others. It's connecting people with you. And it's just, again, creating some clarity. So what can you do to do that? How are you connecting people with you and with others on a call? And direct communication, or using language and word choice and approaches which are appropriate for the conversation, are also critical. Finally, how might we use a platform that is appropriate for the context and what is needed to support that conversation? Ultimately, if people don't feel connected, if they don't feel that they're in a safe space, it's not going to be a conversation. It's going to be a one-way talking at you. And that's not what coaching is all about. We also want to make sure that we build trust, because things get magnified here in the virtual remote space. So how are we walking our talk? How are we following through? Are we making a note of things that we need to do? If we're working with groups, what is fairness all about? Are we giving people equal airtime? Are we being clear with communication? Are we also building on our strengths? Are we clarifying expectations and connecting people and taking ownership for things that worked and don't work? It can get challenging in the virtual space. Things move quickly. So a practical tip, be sure that you're building in enough time. Because where I see a lot of coaches dropping the ball, including myself, is when I get scheduling conflicts. Okay, so one thing you can do is make sure that you're setting up a waiting room. If you're using Zoom, set up a waiting room so that people go into the waiting room rather than jump in or join you right in the call. Or maybe you're trying to have people meet you in different rooms. Well, that's okay. If you're only doing 1 or 2 calls a day, that can work. But if you're doing a series of back-to-back-to-back conversations, you might find that you need people to keep meeting you in the same room. But make sure you activate that waiting room so people don't drop in. We do want to make sure that we're building trust in many different ways, because we do want to hold that confidential safe space, and we don't want people dropping in to the middle of the conversation. Clarity as key. And if you've watched one of the other videos that I've done here for the ICF, I've talked about the 7 C's to remote work. We talk a little bit more about that over at the Remote Pathways podcast and in the 52-week series. So there's lots more to dig into. I hope that you're going to have fun as you move through these. And if you have any questions, please reach out. You'll always find me at remotepathways.com as well as groupcoachingessentials.com. As I've said in other videos, please do check out the Monday Teams 365 tips around effective virtual conversations. And also be sure to download the remote working white paper. With that, enjoy your conversations and let us know, what questions do you have and what have you been able to put into practice to help deepen the trust, safety, and connection with your clients. Thanks for joining us.